My new neighbor shows up multiple times a day, asking for favors. When I refused to dog sit, she tied her dog to my gate and left. My new neighbor and her adult daughter knock on my door multiple times a day asking for favors. Sugar, Wi-Fi passwords, rides to the store. They've tried to get my kids to open the door when I'm not home. When I finally said no to watching her dog for a weekend, she tied the dog to my front gate and drove away. I found it panting in the sun with a note that said, "Be back Sunday." This started the week they moved in. Her name is Nadine. Her daughter Cass is 22. They moved next door in January. Day 1, Nadine introduced herself and asked for garbage bags. Normal. Day 2, batteries. Day 3, my garden hose. Day 4, a screwdriver. By the end of the first week, she'd knocked 9 times. Each request seemed small enough that saying no felt petty, but she wasn't borrowing. She was outsourcing. Week 2, Cass asked to use my Wi-Fi. I gave her the password. She sat on my porch for hours. On the third day, she walked through my front door without knocking because she'd been there enough that it felt like she lived here. I told her to knock. She looked at me like I was being weird. By week 3, Nadine asked me to drive her to the pharmacy, then the grocery store. Each time she said her car was in the shop. Her car was in the driveway. Cass asked if my kids could play with her while I was at work because she was bored. She's 22. I told my kids not to open the door for anyone when I'm not home. 2 days later, my daughter told me Cass knocked for 10 minutes, then went to the back patio and knocked on the sliding glass door. My son said Cass waved through the glass and mouthed, "Let me in." I went to Nadine's house. Your daughter tried to get my kids to open the door. She was just bored. My kids are 7 and 9. She doesn't get to knock on my back door while I'm gone. Please respect that. She said fine. The next day, she asked me to dog sit. She has a medium-sized dog named Biscuit. She said she and Cass were visiting family for the weekend. I can't. I have plans. It's just 2 days. He sleeps mostly. I'm sorry, but no. Can your kids watch him? No. They're children and it's not their responsibility. She looked annoyed, but she left. Friday morning, I opened my front door to leave for work. Biscuit was tied to my gate post with a rope. There was an empty water bowl next to him. A Ziploc bag of dog food hung on the fence. A note taped to the gate said, "Be back Sunday. Thanks, Nadine." The dog was panting in direct sunlight at 9 a.m. I brought the dog inside, gave him water, and called Nadine. Straight to voicemail. I texted, "You left your dog tied to my gate." I said no. Come get him or I'm calling animal control. No response. I called my neighbor on the other side, Frank. He said Nadine had asked him too, and he'd also said no. She'd left the dog with the only person she could pin it on by physically, tying it to my property. I called animal control and explained the situation. They said if the owner was unreachable and the dog had been abandoned, they could pick it up. I said I'd keep it through the weekend, but I wanted the incident documented. They created a file. I kept Biscuit in my kitchen. He was actually a sweet dog. My kids loved him, but that wasn't the point. The point was that I said no, and she physically tied her responsibility to my fence. She decided for me. That's the pattern with Nadine. She doesn't hear no. She just finds a way around it. Nadine came home Sunday evening. She knocked at 6 p.m., smiling. "How was Biscuit? Was he good? You tied your dog to my gate in the sun without my permission after I told you no. I knew you'd take him in. You're a good person." Being a good person doesn't mean you get to make me your free dog sitter by leaving an animal tied to my property. I said no. You did it anyway. I called animal control and there's a report on file. Her face changed. "You called animal control? You abandoned your dog tied to a post in 78-degree heat with an empty water bowl." "Yes, I called. I didn't abandon him. I left him with a neighbor. A neighbor who said no." Cass appeared behind her. "That's so dramatic. He was fine. He was panting with no water when I found him." Nadine grabbed the dog and went home. She didn't speak to me for 4 days. Then she knocked on my door and asked if I had any cling wrap. I said no and closed the door. That's been my answer to everything since. She knocks. I say no. She sends Cass. I say no. They wave through the window. I close the blinds. Last week, Cass left a plate of cookies on my porch with a note that said, "Peace offering." I ate the cookies. I still said no the next day when Nadine asked to borrow my vacuum. Frank told me Nadine called me rude to another neighbor. I told Frank about the dog. He said, "That's not rude. That's a woman with a fence." The fence isn't just physical. It's the word no, repeated until it sticks. Biscuit deserved better than a rope and an empty bowl. My kids deserve a door that stays locked. And I deserve a quiet Saturday morning where nobody knocks.